Hello, how is everybody doing right now? It's been a minute, I know, and I am trying very hard to get back into what I need to do to get back on track with my videos. Personally, I've had a lot going on. We went on vacation and saw our granddaughter in Ohio. We were there for almost a week, and then we came back and I picked up my son in North Carolina to bring him to Florida because he wanted to come back and live with mom. So I've had a very busy couple of weeks, and I have content, but I haven't had time to edit it. So I am working really hard on getting all of that taken care of. And it's just been kind of crazy. So I wanted to jump on here and try to just get everybody's, do a little like life update. I recently quit my job, and while the job is wonderful, I enjoyed it, and it was very nice to be able to have a schedule that worked with me as far as all my medical appointments and everything. I had an opportunity come up more locally that was too hard to pass up and wanted to really give it a go. So at my heart, I am an artist, so this is an opportunity that I'm really looking forward to. And in addition to that, I am doing a lot of book-oriented crafts. I started doing bookbinding, and I just recently bought an airbrush, and I am going to be working on rebinding my entire Shadow Hunter series that I just got on second, or I guess new to me. I bought them from my library, and they're in rough shape, but they have potential to be something really cool. So I am rebinding those, and I have already done City of Bones, but I still have 5 or 6 more. 5 more that are needing to be redone. So I'm looking forward to that. I actually have a video, a process video that's going to be posting probably in the next couple of days, if not sooner, for the rebinding of City of Bones. And I designed a cover, I did sprayed edges, and I had a lot of fun with it, and have since bought like all the things to be able to do that, because I worked with what I had initially. So I am really enjoying that little thing, and I am hoping that the further I get into that, I'll be able to start posting some of the ones I have done for sale, because I find that it really satisfies a creative need that I have. So that's a little update on that. It is, what day is it? It is March 25th, and I have not done a book update in a while, and I thought I would share with you the books that I have recently read. So I've read quite a few, and they are all on my hardcover, and I have rated them using my compile, which has been a very, very nice little addition to my reading journey, because I really enjoy the way the compile lets me break those down, because I think that it's very easy to just kind of rate purely for enjoyment. And I do enjoy the fact that I'm delving deeper into the content of the book in that sense. I like that it challenges me to read a little bit deeper, and it's actually pushed me out of my comfort zone in the type of books that I'm reading, even though I'm still reading a lot of fantasy. One of my favorite ones that I recently read was, it was in February, And of course, it was Heartless Hunter. It was my only, so far this year, 5-star read. And it was absolutely an amazing book. I really enjoyed the banter between the characters. The witch/witch hunter storyline was really fun. And I immediately followed it up with book number 2 because I did finish, I think I finished it on like the 16th of February, and then turned around and had to wait a few days to get the audiobook of Rebel Witch, which I pre-ordered on Audible because I loved Heartless Hunter so much. Now, I will say that the relationship in Heartless Hunter, it very much piqued my interest in the way that they essentially were spying on each other without the other knowing. And it made for a really interesting plot line in the first book. One thing that I did get a little kind of over it hearing about was just the way they kept saying, but she's a witch, or but he's a hunter. And it was, this kind of, it was verboten for them to be involved. And it was very, very repetitive in that sense, which is not terrible. But I got tired of hearing them say this in the second book. So that is probably one of the biggest reasons why the second book only got 4.5 stars from me. But it was still an incredible read. And I still really enjoyed how the story wrapped up. Overall, Kristen Ciccarelli, loved her. I definitely want to go and find other books that she has written because I think that I'll really enjoy them. As far as a handful of other books that I read last month, I read one of the books that I read last month, which was for my book club, which is Lit Happens. We do it at the local library. And it was called Notes on an Execution, and that is by Dania Kukavka. The book is a look at a man who is on death row. He's getting ready to be executed. It starts 12 hours before his execution time, and it jumps between his perspective and the perspective of 3 women who were involved in his entire life. The first one being his mom, her name is Lavender. The second one being the detective who is trying to solve the case, who has been trying to solve the case of the women he killed, and her name is Safi. And then the third perspective is from Hazel, and Hazel is the twin of the woman he had married during his life. And the concept of the story is you go through his perspective and it's all kind of current time. And then anytime you jump to one of the other perspectives of the women, it jumps back in time. So you start with him sitting in his cell contemplating his death. And then after he does his first chapter, after they do the first chapter, it jumps to the perspective of Lavender, which is his mom. And it is in 1973, if I'm remembering correctly. And it literally jumps right into a birth scene of her having him in a barn with no medical assistance. It's just her and his father. And there are many trigger warnings in this book. I would highly recommend you do a little research and find out what the book is about and what kind of stuff gets brought up in it, because it is a very disturbing book in some parts. But it is a absolutely phenomenal read. And although the book centers around him, the author's intent with the book was to tell a story about a serial killer that is not kind of told in the sense of like the Ted Bundys and the, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer type stories where it centers on the serial killer, but where it really goes into the people impacted in their life and tries to keep the story really relevant to the victims. And I think she did a phenomenal job. It was an incredible story, and overall one that I would recommend if somebody wants a really kind of I don't know, just a really kind of out of your typical comfort zone read. It's just a very good book. And coming up for my next book club meetings, we actually are reading a nonfiction, and that is Spare by Prince Harry. So I'm really curious to see how that goes. I have the physical copy coming. I bought it off of Thrift Books, so I'm excited. Little nervous because I'm not big on biographies. They're just not kind of my cup of tea, unless they're kind of centered around big events. So of course, Spare will probably have some pretty interesting concepts in it, just because, you know, I mean, he's gone through a lot in his life. He is royalty. His mother was killed or died in a car accident. So, I mean, there's going to be things about this book that are going to be very good and very, they're going to be very poignant in that sense. Overall, I am looking forward to reading this book. Some other books that I read in the last month and a half. I'm trying not to go too far into March so I can do a March wrap up. So this is kind of like my February wrap up, but we're really late. I started reading the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rorick, and holy crap, I got sucked in. And while I will say there are parts of the story that kind of bothered me, the main character, she is a little bit of a, she's kind of hard to like in the sense that she keeps secrets from everyone, and she acts with a lot of impulse in her activities. But at the same time, like, if you continue on with the series and you can get past it in the first book, like, you really learn how and why she is the way she is. And the Lady of Darkness series, it's a epic fantasy. It's definitely set in a world that is not based on Earth. You get a map in the ebook or the physical book that kind of helps you understand a little more about the structure of the world. You have witches, you have werewolves, you have vampires, you have fae. I mean, you really get the gambit when it comes to this book. But then at the same time, you have just regular mortals. And they are, you know, she grows up in the human realm, the mortal realm, not knowing what she is, just knowing, you know, and she's raised by an assassin, like a guild. And there's a lot in this book to unpack. In the first one, they grow up knowing of these areas. They've been sequestered through the means of magic away from the mortal world. So the theory is they can't get into the mortal world. Werewolves or shapeshifters, vampires, etc., they're not able to get into this area, right? So mortals are supposed to be safe. And as you go through this, she's part of a trio that are assassins for this guild, and they're considered like the best of the best. And so you have Nuri, you have her, and then you have, I'm trying to remember the other character's name. It's been a minute since I finished this book, so I'll post it up here. But there's the three women, and they are essentially like, you're dead if they come after you. And they each have their own unique name that is kind of reveled and feared in society, and people know of them, but they don't know who they are. So it's a very good kind of interesting trope in that sense. There are love interests that, you know, there's a love triangle, there's love interests, there's a lot that happens in the series that just, you kind of are, you can't help but kind of get a little bit, I guess, drawn into certain parts of these love interests. And there are parts of it that really, you're just kind of like, okay, guy, like, she's already told you it's not going to work. And he can't get past what he thinks is his love for her, and she has been trained by this Assassin's Guild for basically the entirety of her life. And with that, she has always kind of felt like an outsider among all her peers, which is you would expect that. And she's made to live with these, what are considered a mortal family, as punishment for something that has happened to her. And this whole thing, the whole story, it's so convoluted and detailed. It's just a very epic fantasy. And there is some interesting, tropes, that get brought in. You have a mentor-mentee trope. You have kind of forbidden love in the sense from some of the side characters. And certain things just really kind of elevate the story. And the nice thing that I thought about the series was that you get introduced, there's a very large cast of characters in this book. Melissa Rurick does a very good job of building up her characters slowly to where you're not overwhelmed. So you get introduced to, a set number of characters in the beginning. And then as you move further into the series, you meet more and more characters. And it makes it really easy to follow along with who is who and, just kind of how the whole series just kind of breaks down. So with that, you also end up with several side relationships. But the nice thing about it is you root for more than just the MMC and the FMC, which is fun because I really enjoy a story that can build interest in its side characters without taking away from the main story. So I really enjoyed these books by her. Overall, I think the series ends up with a 4-star from me. They all kind of fluctuate in certain areas just because there's parts of each book that maybe did or didn't impress me as I went along. So I really enjoy the idea that the story grows in magnitude as you move into the books. Additionally, I read a couple other books. I do my book lottery, and I haven't had a chance to do it on screen with you guys, which I plan on doing in this video because I need to do my March book. But my February book lottery book was based on 3 separate things, and I ended up picking up The Hive, and it's by Morgan Baden and Barry Liga, and they're a husband and wife team, and it's a young adult story that is a sci-fi. It's set in probably in the not so distant future. They don't ever talk about what year it is, so you just kind of have to roll with it. And it's about a young girl who is the daughter of a known white hat hacker, and it comes in it starts off in, I really didn't like the character. She was very angsty, which obviously it's a YA book, so it's expected, but it was kind of hard to swallow initially just because it feels very teenager centric. But as you move into the story, it gets a lot better, and you see growth of the main character, Cassie, as she goes through the events of the book. And essentially what it is the premise of the story is you have the Hive, which is a social media platform that has been designed to kind of prevent online bullying or apathetic behavior, I guess is the best way to describe it. So people can get condemns, which basically means that, like, if you reach a level 1 condemn, you face some sort of event or repercussion for your actions. So it starts out, the first chapter or two, a man has trash talked his wife who has been sick online, and people condemn him for it. So what ends up happening is he gets paraded through the streets naked, and that's his punishment. And I think he has to do it for the whole day. Things like that come to pass in the book. And they're, like I said, each action has a reaction when it comes to society. But at the same time, Cassie, whose father died 6 months ago, she's trying to find ways to reconnect with life. She's felt very just kind of detached. So she goes to this rally, and she feels like, initially she feels like it's going to be the answer to getting her to feel better. But then when she gets there, all she can see is her father in this man. And it completely kind of negates the whole reason she went. And she just ends up leaving, and she just can't stand to be there anymore. It goes through the storyline. Her and her mom are living in a new home. She has to start a new school because their dad left them with basically nothing. Or her dad left them with basically nothing. Which, I mean, it's kind of very common trope. You know, usually there's a situation where, you know, the teenager has, or the family has something that has happened, and they're unhappy now, right? Or they've been put out of their homes. So they're living in an apartment in the city. Her mom's got a new job working for like a tech university, but she's a philosophy teacher. So she is very much tied into the old ways. She likes physical books. She's not a big fan of social media. She tries to keep her daughter off of it as much as she can. And overall, they end up clashing in this because the daughter is very tech savvy. The mama will try and lock her out of her phone so she doesn't mess with certain things, but she can hack it and get right back in. You know, so essentially it's one of those situations where they're constantly kind of at odds. Once Cassie begins school, she's kind of like, she just wants to get through her senior year. She goes through the process of doing the school tour with the person that they've assigned her to. And she does her thing, and she just kind of like plays along, and ends up, there's a altercation between her and this girl during lunch one day, and she just kind of is like, stay away from me. And she ends up making friends or becoming an acquaintance with this group of girls. And they're not nice people. Like, they're not nice people. They look for ways to mess with people. They have what they call their homework coven, which is essentially each one is good at one subject. And the only reason they let Cassie into the group is because Cassie has tech knowledge, and they need somebody that has the smarts for tech. So essentially, Cassie is taken in by these girls for purely, you know, personal gain. And when all is said and done, you know, they act along the lines of, you know, today is temporary. Nobody's going to remember it tomorrow. So they go through and they will post things online that are just awful. And one day, pictures of the president's grandchild are posted online, and they come up with this thing that they're going to just trash this child, right? And ends up, they say, oh, it's too bad that abortion didn't take. And it's Cassie's comment, and Cassie posts it because that's what they encourage her to do. And it backfires massively. And Cassie starts getting condemns like right out of the gate. And within 12 hours or 24 hours, she's at level 5, which is basically kill on sight. So this girl who is 17 is on the run. She's trying to survive. One of the things you're not supposed to do when you reach a level is to run. It's like, it's not allowed. So as she is trying to survive, she meets hackers, she meets allies, she finds out enemies, or she finds out friends are enemies. Like, there is just a massive amount of things that happen. And this whole time, her family's under the microscope, her mom and her, because prior to her father's death, he was under, I guess, some sort of investigation from the FBI. So they've been under watch for this whole time anyway. And now suddenly all these people want to kill her. And she goes underground. She manages to figure out that there's this all one giant government conspiracy. And it ends up being a wild ride. And like, I could get further into detail, but I don't want to ruin the story if you decide to read it. Because the things that happen, the level of just intensity in this series, in the book, is fascinating. And it is standalone. And it's a very quick read. So overall, like, the book itself, I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. Because, like I said, I had a hard time getting into it. Her character just kind of irritated me. But, again, as you get further into the book, it gets better. And she does grow. She does definitely, like, there's definitely good character development in this. But it is a book that is just going to make you go, holy crap. Because a lot happens. And I would recommend it to young adults, to middle graders, maybe older middle graders. But it's a fascinating look at social media and the government and how things can easily get out of hand. I would definitely say it is a book that will get people talking and can possibly lead to political conversation. But overall, I think if you keep it about the story and don't try and make it relevant to today, it's a very good read. Another book that I read last month is The Brutal Prince. Now, obviously, jumping from The Hive to The Brutal Prince is a massive leap. Because The Brutal Prince is a mafia romance. And I was not impressed. It's just not my thing. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, it would have been a book that I had read and enjoyed thoroughly. But in this particular day and age, it's just not really my cup of tea. It is centered around 2 families. It's got a very much Romeo and Juliet kind of trope to it. Or you could even say maybe Hatfields and McCoys in that sense. Like, it's these 2 families hate each other. And it starts with the families are the Griffins and the Gallows. And one is Irish, the other is, I believe, Italian. And you have Ada, who is the youngest daughter, and Callum, who is the eldest son in the Griffin family. So you have Ada Gallo and Callum Griffin. And he is a political figure. So he's like in politics. Like, he's running for, I think, alderman in this book. Well, they're having this big party to celebrate the youngest child's 21st birthday? 18th or 21st birthday. I can't remember exactly which one. for the Griffin's youngest daughter, or youngest child, period. And the Griffins decide they're just going to go crash the party, right? And they leave a dinner and they go and they do their thing, and it's supposed to be, you know, not innocent, but it's not supposed to be anything big. Like if they get found out, they'll leave, right? Well, it doesn't happen that way. Ada somehow gets into the family's library, and she is snooping around. And while she's in there, she ends up picking up a watch. She ends up picking up this watch, and it's an antique. And while she's looking at this watch, she hears a noise from the hallway, and Callum is literally walking into the library. So she hides behind this like high back chair next to the fireplace. And things go awry. So he's like settled in. He's having a drink. He's sitting at the desk. He is not going anywhere. And she's freaking out. So she decides that she is going to light the drinks on fire as a way to distract him so she can sneak out. It doesn't work out. Ends up, it's mass hysteria. Excuse me. It ends up being mass hysteria. And she ends up destroying like half the library. And as this goes down, he figures out it's her, finds her, and they plan that, you know, the young people of the family think that they need to go get retribution, right? Well, the matriarch and the patriarch of each family have different ideas. So what ends up happening is they decide they're going to arrange a marriage between Ada and Callum as punishment. And it ends up being this enemies to lovers story that is just, it feels not pointless, but it's just, it just wasn't for me. Now, if you like a mafia romance, if you love the enemies to lovers trope, this could very well be the book for you. It's Sophie Lark. A lot of people love her writing. It wasn't my cup of tea, right? So overall, this one got, I think I ended up giving it 2.5 stars, 3 stars. It wasn't that great. I moved on from that and ended up picking up The Gunslinger by Stephen King. I got this one on audiobook, and I will say it was a little bit of a difficult audiobook for me. I don't know if that's because I felt like the story moved fairly slowly, but I know everybody says Gunslinger from the Dark Tower is the kind of the slowest in the series. So it did pick up towards the end, which I enjoyed. I am kind of feeling like I had a fever dream when I listened to it, but I am not writing it off. It did get 4 stars from me. Stephen King is excellent at character building, and I have read some of his other books way back in the day when I was trying to explore his writing, but got really turned off from it when I was reading it, and there was just some descriptive moments in that book that I had to put it down. But I have read Cujo, I've read Gerald's Game, I've read Rose Madder, which are some more, in my opinion, very thought-provoking. They're not as, what's the word I'm looking for? they're not as cringy in the sense of not like cringy and romance cringy, but like make me have to step away because it's like the visuals in my head are so vile. And that's what I experienced when I read it. There are, I know, a lot of diehard Stephen King fans out there. So I am working very hard to give this series a go. Will it succeed in my TBR and stay there? I don't know. I have somewhat started the second book, but I have not been big into audiobooks the last few weeks. I am just starting another audiobook, and that will come next month because I'm not going to talk about it yet. But it is another author that I have found through many a recommendation on BookTube. Now, I did revisit an oldie for me, a goodie. I love my Shannon Meyer. She is amazing. I've read her for many years. And I read the final book in the trilogy that she has called The Golden Wolf. And she is a big Kindle Unlimited author. That's where I discovered her. And I have read every book from her, I think, save a handful. And I think I've bought all of them as well. They're just, I love her. I love her stories. And if she ever leaves Kindle Unlimited, I still have the books. So I'm very happy about that. Overall, Gossamer, which is the third book, it closes well, but it definitely had a few things in it that I just felt a little weird about. She's got this sidekick who is a cat that can talk. The cat used to be a woman, and the woman used to have problems with sleeping with men that were not hers. So she got cursed by a witch. So she's been stuck in this cat body, but she can talk. But only certain people can hear her. And that has to do with the magic of the system and everything else. And the cat is hilarious. Like, she's hilarious. And so you've gone on this ride, and she's just trying to survive, right? I mean, she's been running from her family and her mother, who has tried to kill her multiple times because of some prophecy saying that she would be more powerful of an alpha than her mom. So the premise of the story is this woman has been cursed. She is a werewolf shifter, and she was cursed into the body of a golden retriever. So she spends the entirety of this trilogy trying to figure out how to break this curse. And there's hilarity, there's great relationships, there's a lot of fun in these books. And that's one of my favorite things about Shannon. She's one of my favorites. I've bought book boxes from her. I've read 2 of her bigger series, well, 3. 3 of her bigger series. Nope, take that back. 4. I've read a lot of her books, and I always love the characters. She's great character development. She does a really good job of telling stories that are fun and easy to stay in. So that's something that I've always loved about her. Good morning, Future Brother here. I wanted to add in a couple of items that I had missed yesterday. 1, because I didn't have the book with me and I wanted to show you the book. And 2, excuse me, I have this random, hello. I just woke up, so give me a break here. It's early. So I am going to cover 2 more books that I did read in February. 1 was a DNF, and that was The Probability of Miracles. This was a total cover buy, so shame on me. The back sounded really good, and I thought it would be better than it was. It is probably, I would put this as young adult, possibly middle grade, but very upper middle grade, like 8th grade. And it is about a young girl who has had cancer the last 5 years, and she's 17. And she's just done with it.
She doesn't want to do any more treatments. She doesn't want to do any more home remedies. Her mom is all about finding alternative methods to keep her well. And they make a decision to go to this place called Promise. And I made it to page 110 in this book. And I just couldn't do it anymore. The writing is fine. I couldn't deal with the character. She just kind of got really, I don't know, she was a little too angsty for me, I guess. It's got great reviews. It actually says, of course, you know, I mean, they're only going to put the good reviews on the book. But like Sarah Shepard from Pretty Little Liars reviewed this book, said it was great. But I just couldn't get through it. So this one did end up on my DNFs. I kind of wish I could have made it through it, but it was just one of those things I couldn't do it no more. And I had other books that I was way more interested in reading. So, yep, this one DNF'd. It's going to go back to the charity shop that I bought it from. So, and that along with like Brutal Prints, I'm actually going to do a hardcover rebind and a frayed edges painting on the Brutal Prints, because the young lady that actually sold it to me was really, really interested in having the book. So I thought I'd do it a little glow up and then give it to her. So hopefully I can find her again and she'll enjoy that. So the next set of books, or next book that I read, was actually an audiobook. And I got it through the Audible Plus system because of my subscription. And that was Gideon the Ninth. Now I made it all the way through the book, and it is a very interesting story, but it's just not really a series I think I'm going to continue. It was a little too dark for me. The premise of the necromancers and the scale of the world was really interesting. I was just really overwhelmed with the number of characters to keep track of in that book. Not to say that if I listened to it again, I probably wouldn't appreciate the characters a little bit more. I just felt like I was being force fed all these characters. And there are a lot of characters because you have 9 houses and you have minimum two characters for each house. So I was really overwhelmed by the just the quantity of personalities and people that I had to take in for that book. And I know it's a great book for diversity, and I think it was extremely tastefully done as far as being a young adult book, and it was very subtle, and I thought they did that really well. So overall, I would highly recommend the story to people who would enjoy something like that. As far as the dark, I don't want to call it dark academia because it's definitely not. It's definitely a dark fantasy, sci-fi-ish maybe, because it is different worlds. But it wasn't really what I am in the mood to be reading. And like I said, the characters, there were so many. I felt very overwhelmed. I like a slow introduction to characters if I'm reading a series, trilogy, duology, whatever it might end up being. I just feel like that's a much easier way to digest the information. So I felt like that one just didn't really kind of fall into my area of books that I want to continue. So, and I have way more series that I am interested in reading right now. I'd rather let that one go and move on to something that I know I'm gonna probably really enjoy. There's that. And then immediately following this little bit, I am going to do my lottery, and we're just going to start it off for April. So following this, you're going to see my little process for picking my books. It's not going to be very long, but it'll be kind of fun. Here are the general categories that I start with. I go with 3, and then for each one of those, I go a little bit deeper. So for the first one here, we got the release year of the book.
And our last category is going to be the color of the cover. So we're going to go back and we're going to select each of these and put them into the spinner wheel so that we can figure out what each of these is going to end up being. So for our first category, which is release year, we're going to do 10 to 20 years before for our release dates. Now we're going to do our first letter of the author's first name and see which one we end up with for that one. So for the first letter of the author's first name, we got the letter S. And then our last item is going to be the color of the cover. So we'll select these and put them into the spinner wheel. So for April, we're going to be doing a book from 10 to 20 years ago. The author's name starts with S, and it's going to have a blue cover. So that is a small update from me. I know that it's kind of scattered. I've been trying to find ways to fit in my video time, and if you know anything about me, I will squirrel my way out of anything. So this has been the easiest way I could find to really get it into my day. I have other things that I am working on, and I have my kids that I have to pick up or drop off from school or jobs or whatever, and I have mom stuff. So it can be very overwhelming. And in that sense, I feel like I have kind of talked myself out of doing video the last few weeks, but at the same time, it's like, do I have to do it all at once? So yes, this video is all at once, but I'm going to try and break up my videos a little bit more, just because I feel like trying to get all of what I have to say into one sit down has been what has intimidated me the most about getting in and doing my videos. And additionally, my house has been chaos. Christmas and everything since has kept me from getting my house like deep cleaned. So I have nowhere to sit, nowhere to like video that doesn't look like something or some box blew up at my house. And so I've been working really hard on, doing a deep clean of my home, getting things put back into storage, because my son did just come back to live with us, and the room that I was using for all of my things, crafting, sewing, etc., has officially not become mine. So I have had to condense and purge a lot of things in the last few weeks, and my time has really been consumed by that as well. I am new. I am still figuring this out, and I really want you guys to just enjoy the content that I'm putting out there. So I hope you come back. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy this content, and I will be back very soon with new videos. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.